Chapter 1. The Life After Ghosts. The office was silent except for the low hum of servers and the faint tapping of rain against reinforced glass. Max Mahoney liked silence. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was control. Predictability. Something he had learned to value after years of chaos dressed as duty. He stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows of DataVal Technologies headquarters, watching the city below blur into streaks of red and white headlights. From 32 floors up, everything looked orderly. Traffic moved in lines. People followed rules. Systems functioned, at least on the surface. Behind him, 3 large monitors displayed lines of encryption data flowing like living organisms, constantly shifting patterns of numbers, quantum keys cycling through simulations, defense-grade firewall reports updating in real time. DataVal specialized in security no one else could build. Governments trusted it. Military contractors depended on it. Entire infrastructure systems rested behind its digital walls. And Max made sure those walls never fell. A soft knock sounded at the glass door. "Come in," he said without turning. The door slid open. Ross Bradshaw entered with the kind of confident energy that always seemed one step ahead of the room. Tall, sharply dressed, smile perfectly calibrated. Ross was a man who knew how to sell ideas before people realized they wanted them. "You're still here?" Ross asked, setting a tablet on the desk. "It's past 8. Even CEOs need to go home occasionally." Max allowed himself a small smile. "The network doesn't sleep." Ross chuckled. "That's exactly why we built automation." Max turned from the window and moved toward the desk, scanning the tablet Ross had brought. Quarterly growth charts glowed across the screen, aggressive upward lines, new defense contracts, expansion into international markets. "You did well with the Pentagon briefing," Max said. Ross shrugged modestly. "I just told them what they needed to hear. You're the one who built the system." "We built it," Max corrected. Ross's smile widened slightly at that. They had started DataVal together years ago, 2 men with very different pasts but a shared vision. Ross had the business instincts, the negotiation skills, the relentless drive to expand. Max had the technical genius and strategic mind shaped by experiences he rarely discussed. Most employees believed Max had simply worked in intelligence analysis before entering private industry. Few knew how far from a desk his former life had really been. Max walked toward the server wall, eyes scanning diagnostic readouts. A faint flicker caught his attention, a brief spike in internal access requests. Nothing major, probably an automated system check. Still, he paused. Ross noticed. "Something wrong?" "Probably nothing," Max said. "Just watching patterns." Ross leaned casually against the desk. "You always say that like you're waiting for a storm." Max didn't answer immediately. He had spent too many years reading danger before it appeared. "You don't lose that instinct," he finally said. Ross tilted his head. "Lose what?" Max gave a neutral shrug. "Old habits." Ross nodded slowly, though his eyes lingered a second longer than necessary. The conversation shifted to upcoming projects, new encryption models, expanding government partnerships, hiring more engineers. Ross spoke passionately, hands moving as he described potential deals and opportunities. Max listened, analyzing not just the words but the cadence behind them. Ross had always been ambitious. That wasn't new. But lately, there was an urgency in him, a sharper edge like someone racing an invisible clock. "And we should revisit access structure," Ross added casually. "Executive-level permissions are still too compartmentalized. If we streamlined it, we'd move faster." Max glanced at him. "The separation exists for a reason," he said calmly. "Sure, but you're the only one with full access to certain systems. That creates bottlenecks. It creates security." Ross laughed lightly. "You don't trust me?" Max met his gaze evenly. "Trust isn't the same as protocol." Ross raised his hands in mock surrender. "Fair enough. Just throwing ideas out there." They continued discussing operations, but the moment lingered in Max's mind. Ross had brought up access levels 3 times that week. Max made a mental note, not suspicion exactly, just observation. Later, after Ross left, Max walked through the nearly empty office floor. Employees had gone home. leaving behind half-drunk coffee cups and glowing monitors cycling through security dashboards. The air carried the faint smell of electronics and ozone. He paused near the main server vault, a reinforced chamber protected by biometric locks and multiple encryption layers. The heart of DataVal. He placed his palm against the scanner. Access granted. Inside, rows of server racks stretched into the distance like silent sentinels. Blue indicator lights blinked steadily, each representing a system protecting something valuable: classified military communications, satellite encryption frameworks, national infrastructure defense networks. He walked slowly down the aisle. Years ago, he had moved through dark alleys and hostile territory, listening for footsteps behind him. Now he moved through code and hardware instead of shadows and weapons. The transition had taken time. Leaving the life he once lived hadn't been simple. Even now, certain sounds, a sudden crash, a raised voice, could shift his body into readiness before his mind caught up. He had learned to hide it well. To everyone here, he was just Max Mahoney, CEO, not the man people once called something else. He reached the end of the row and checked the access logs displayed on a terminal. Normal activity. Routine updates. Nothing immediately alarming. Still, he felt that faint tension again, like a whisper just beyond hearing. Max exhaled slowly, forcing himself to relax. This was a different world. Corporate strategy, not covert operations. He returned to his office and packed his laptop into a slim case. Before leaving, he paused again at the window. The rain had stopped. The city lights reflected across wet streets like fractured mirrors. For a moment, he allowed himself to simply exist in the quiet, a man who had built something instead of destroyed something. His phone buzzed softly. A message from Ross. Dinner meeting tomorrow moved to noon. Big opportunity. Max typed a brief reply, got it. He slipped the phone into his pocket and turned off the lights. As he walked toward the elevator, he passed a glass wall displaying Dataval's core philosophy etched in silver letters. Security is trust made visible. Max studied the words for a moment. Trust. He had learned long ago that trust was both the strongest defense and the easiest weapon. He stepped into the elevator, the doors sliding shut with a soft mechanical whisper. Max Mahoney lived a controlled, calculated life as CEO of DataVal Technologies, a cybersecurity firm specializing in advanced encryption and government systems. He presented himself as a calm strategist, far removed from his former life as a CIA Special Activities operative known as the Ghost. His partner Ross Bradshaw appeared charismatic and driven, helping build the company into a powerful force in defense technology. Yet subtle cracks appeared. Ross pushed aggressively for deeper access to restricted systems, hinting at ambition that felt slightly off. Max noticed, but chose trust over suspicion for now. Chapter 2. Quiet warnings. The anomaly appeared at 6.13. Max noticed it before the system did. He sat alone in his office, jacket draped over the chair, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. Morning light filtered through the glass walls, reflecting off the monitors displaying real-time security analytics. Lines of encrypted traffic moved across the screen like currents beneath dark water. Most people saw numbers. Max saw behavior. A small deviation blinked on the edge of a monitoring window, a brief spike in authorization attempts targeting a restricted partition. It vanished within seconds. Max leaned forward slightly. "Show me the last 3 minutes," he murmured. The system complied, replaying activity logs. Normal background processes filled most of the timeline. Automated checks. Routine authentication. Nothing obvious. Except one thing. A query directed toward a classified partition. One that only he could access. Max's expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. He tapped a few commands, isolating the event. Unauthorized access attempt. Source. Internal. He leaned back slowly. Internal meant someone inside DataVal had initiated it, or someone had gained access through internal credentials. Probably a misfire, he said quietly to himself. Still, he flagged the log. The office began filling with employees as the morning progressed. Conversations drifted through the hallways. punctuated by the hum of servers and the occasional laugh from the engineering teams. Ross arrived late morning, carrying coffee in both hands. "I come bearing peace offerings," he announced, stepping into Max's office. Max accepted the cup without looking away from his screen. "Trying to bribe me?" "Always," Ross said with a grin. "It's cheaper than convincing you with logic." Max allowed a faint smile. Ross pulled up a chair. "You look like you've been staring at code since sunrise." "Close enough. What's got your attention?" Max hesitated for half a second. "Minor anomaly," he said finally. "Probably nothing." Ross leaned closer to glance at the monitor. "You worry too much. That's why we hired an entire security team. And yet I still check," Max replied calmly. Ross shrugged. "Fair point." They discussed upcoming meetings, contract negotiations, and expansion plans. Ross's energy filled the room, his enthusiasm almost infectious. He spoke about new partnerships, new markets, bigger opportunities. Max listened, but part of his mind stayed fixed on the anomaly. Ross stood to leave. "Lunch later?" "Maybe," Max said. "Depends on workload." Ross paused at the door. "You know, you should let go a little sometimes. We're not in a war zone." Max's gaze lingered on the screen. "Habits take time to fade." Ross laughed lightly and left. The door closed. Silence returned. Max replayed the access attempt again, studying timing, authorization paths, digital fingerprints. Whoever initiated it had pulled back quickly, almost like testing the boundary rather than forcing entry. He opened additional logs. 2 more minor anomalies appeared over the past week, subtle enough to avoid automatic alerts. Someone was probing. His phone vibrated on the desk. Unknown number. Max stared at it for a moment before answering. "Mahoney," a familiar voice replied, low and amused. Still answering unknown calls. Some habits never change. Max's posture shifted slightly. "Daniel," he said. "It's been a while." Daniel Reyes had once been an intelligence liaison, unofficially a fixer, officially something else. Their paths had crossed during operations Max rarely spoke about anymore. "You busy?" Reyes asked. "Always." "What do you need?" A brief pause. "Actually," Reyes said quietly, "this isn't about me needing anything." Max waited. "I'm passing through town," Reyes continued. "Thought we could catch up. Coffee." Max hesitated, sensing weight behind the casual tone. "Where?" "Same place near the marina." 30 minutes. "I'll be there." The cafe overlooked gray water and slow-moving boats. It was quiet enough for a private conversation without drawing attention. Reyes sat at a corner table, older than Max remembered, but carrying the same watchful eyes. "CEO life suits you," Reyes said as Max approached. "It's quieter," Max replied, sitting down. Reyes chuckled. "That's what you tell yourself." They exchanged small talk for a few minutes, safe topics, shared memories softened by time. Then Reyes leaned forward. "You ever feel like your past sends reminders?" he asked. Max's expression remained neutral. "Depends on the reminder." "I heard a name recently," Reyes said carefully. "Your company came up in a conversation." Max's attention sharpened. "Context: international buyers, defense tech brokers, people who don't attend trade shows." Max said nothing. Reyes continued. "And another name surfaced alongside yours." Max waited. "Ross Bradshaw." The cafe noise seemed to fade. Max's voice stayed calm. "Ross meets investors all the time." "These weren't investors," Reyes said quietly. "More like middlemen." "For what?" Reyes shrugged slightly. "Hard to say, but some of the people he's been seen with operate close to espionage markets." Max studied him carefully. "Are you telling me my business partner is selling secrets?" "I'm telling you to look closer." Max exhaled slowly. "Ross built this company with me." "I know," Reyes said gently. "That's why I'm warning you quietly." Max leaned back, gaze drifting toward the water. "Could be coincidence," he said. "Maybe," Reyes agreed. "Just don't ignore your instincts." They sat in silence for a moment. Max's mind moved through possibilities, false leads, misunderstandings, misidentifications. Ross ambitious? Yes. Dangerous? That felt unlikely. "Thank you," Max said finally. Reyes nodded. "I don't interfere unless something feels wrong." They parted without ceremony. Back at Dataval, Max returned to his office and locked the door. He pulled up deeper system diagnostics, expanding monitoring parameters quietly without triggering alerts that would notify other executives. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. If someone was probing internal systems, he would see it. Hours passed. More logs. More patterns. Nothing conclusive, just faint irregularities. Max leaned back in his chair, eyes closing briefly. He told himself Reyes could be mistaken. Rumors traveled fast in intelligence circles, often distorted. Still, he activated a hidden monitoring protocol he hadn't used in years. Silent observation. No confrontation. Just watching. Strange anomalies began appearing inside Dataval's network. Unauthorized access attempts targeted classified partitions only Max should control. A former intelligence contact discreetly warned Max that Ross had been meeting with questionable figures connected to international espionage markets. Max initially dismissed the idea of betrayal, but quietly started monitoring internal activity. Memories of his past instincts resurfaced, patterns of deception he learned long ago. Chapter 3. The Call at 3 a.m. The phone rang at exactly 3:02 a.m. Max woke instantly. Not slowly, not groggily, instantly. Years of conditioning snapped him into alertness before his eyes fully opened. His hand moved automatically toward the nightstand, scanning the dark room first before grabbing the device. The screen glowed against the shadows. Unknown number. He answered without hesitation. Mahoney. Mr. Mahoney? The voice on the other end was tight, professional but strained. This is St. Vincent Emergency Department. Are you related to Robert Mahoney? Max sat upright. Yes. There's been an incident. Your father was brought in approximately 40 minutes ago. He's alive, but you need to come immediately. Something cold moved through Max's chest. What kind of incident? A brief pause. Physical assault. Severe trauma. Max was already out of bed. I'm on my way. He ended the call, adrenaline pushing away sleep entirely. He dressed quickly, movements precise and efficient, jeans, dark jacket, boots. He grabbed his keys, phone, and wallet without thinking. As he stepped outside, the night air felt unnaturally still. The drive blurred. Empty roads. Traffic lights cycling through colors no one waited for. The engine's hum filled the silence while his mind raced through possibilities. Robbery. Random violence. Wrong place, wrong time. But something deeper twisted beneath those explanations, a quiet dread that felt too familiar. The hospital came into view under harsh white lights. Max parked without caring about lines or rules and walked quickly toward the entrance. Inside, the ER smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion. Mahoney, he said to the front desk. The nurse's expression softened with recognition. Yes, sir. This way. They led him through swinging doors into a corridor where machines beeped steadily behind curtains. Every step felt heavier. She stopped outside a room. He's conscious, but barely, she said quietly. Prepare yourself. Max nodded once. He stepped inside. For a moment, he didn't recognize the man in the bed. His father's face was swollen, bruised, dark purple and yellow. One eye nearly closed. Tubes ran from his arm, monitors tracking heartbeat and oxygen levels. But it was the hands that stopped Max cold. Bandaged thickly, fingers twisted at unnatural angles beneath the gauze. Red burns visible along the exposed skin. Max felt something inside him go utterly still. Dad, he said softly. His father's eyes fluttered open. Recognition came slowly, followed by relief. Max. The word was barely a whisper. Max moved closer, pulling a chair beside the bed. I'm here. A strained breath escaped his father's lips. I tried, he murmured. Don't talk yet, Max said gently. You're safe. But his father shook his head weakly. No, listen. Max leaned closer, lowering his voice. What happened? His father swallowed painfully, eyes unfocused with medication and shock. He came to the house. Max's stomach tightened. Who? A tremor ran through his father's body. Your partner. The word hit like a physical blow. Max froze. Ross. A faint nod. Memory fragments collided in Max's mind, Ross's smile, conversations about access, Reyes's warning at the cafe. No, Max said automatically. That doesn't make sense. His father's breathing grew shallow. He wanted codes? What codes? Server access, his voice cracked. Said you were hiding things from him. Max's pulse pounded in his ears. What did he do to you? For a moment, his father couldn't speak. Pain tightened his face. Then he whispered, car, battery. Max's jaw clenched. He hooked it to me, his father gasped. Hours. A wave of heat rose through Max's chest. Not panic, not grief. Something colder. What did you tell him? Max asked quietly. Nothing. His father's eyes filled with fierce determination despite the pain. Never. Max swallowed hard. You did good, he said softly. Footsteps approached outside, but Max ignored them. His father struggled again. Listen, he said, tonight. Max leaned closer. What tonight? A team. Hired. Wet work. The words came out broken, fragmented. Your house, your family. The room seemed to tilt. Max felt every sense sharpen at once. Sounds growing clearer, colors sharper, time slowing. Ross. Ross had tortured his father. Ross had hired killers. The denial that had lingered inside Max since Reyes's warning vanished instantly. Shock faded. Clarity replaced it. Dad, Max said quietly, voice steady despite the storm inside him. Did anyone else hear this? Did you tell the police? His father's eyelids fluttered. Couldn't talk. Max nodded slowly. He stood, pacing once across the small room, forcing himself to breathe evenly. Pieces fell into place with ruthless precision. The anomalies in the system, Ross pushing for access, strange urgency in his behavior. It had all been preparation. Betrayal. Max stopped moving. When he turned back toward the bed, something in his expression had changed, emotion buried beneath a calm, controlled surface. His father watched him weakly. Max, I'm here, he said again, softer now. A nurse entered briefly to check monitors, giving Max a questioning glance. He simply nodded, saying nothing. When they were alone again, his father whispered, he thought, you forgot who you were. Max's eyes hardened slightly. Outside, distant ambulance sirens echoed through the night. Inside, everything felt unnaturally still. Shock gave way to cold clarity as Max realized the betrayal was real. Chapter 4. The Ghost Returns. Max left the hospital without remembering the walk to the parking lot. One moment, he was beside his father's bed, listening to the slow beep of machines. The next, he was behind the wheel, engine running, headlights cutting through the dark. But his mind wasn't chaotic anymore. It was quiet, clear, operational. The emotional shock had already been compartmentalized, locked away behind a mental wall built years ago. Fear, anger, grief, all of it pushed aside in favor of priorities. Protect the family. Assess the threat. Control the battlefield. His phone vibrated. He ignored it. Instead, he opened a secure app hidden behind an innocuous calculator icon. The interface appeared after biometric confirmation. Encrypted communication software he had written himself years earlier, never fully abandoning the habits of his former life. He selected a contact labeled only with a single letter, J. The message he typed was short. Protocol black. Immediate support required. He hit send. 3 seconds later, a response appeared. Location? Max sent coordinates. Then he accelerated. The house was dark when he arrived. He parked half a block away, scanning the street before stepping out. Old instincts guided every movement, checking reflections in windows, listening for engines idling nearby, searching rooftops for silhouettes. Nothing obvious. That didn't mean safe. He entered quietly. Inside, everything looked normal. Shoes by the door, soft light from a hallway lamp, faint sound of a television upstairs. His wife appeared at the top of the stairs, surprised. Max, what are you doing home at? We need to leave, he said gently but firmly. Her expression shifted instantly. She had learned long ago to recognize that tone. What happened? I'll explain on the way. Pack only essentials. 5 minutes. She didn't argue. That was one of the reasons he loved her. While she moved quickly upstairs, Max crossed to a cabinet in the living room and pressed a hidden latch beneath the shelf. The panel opened silently, revealing a compact safe. Inside lay items from another life: a handgun, spare magazines, burner phones, and documents sealed in waterproof envelopes. He hesitated only briefly before taking them. Footsteps descended the stairs. His son appeared, half awake, clutching a backpack. "Dad, is everything okay?" Max knelt, forcing warmth into his voice. "We're going on a little trip. Adventure time. Now, now." His wife returned moments later. "Where are we going?" "A place that's secure." Her eyes searched his face. "Is this work?" "Yes," he said simply. They left through the garage, avoiding the front door. Max loaded the car quickly, eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. As he drove, he activated counter-surveillance patterns automatically, unnecessary turns, changes in speed, checking mirrors for repeated vehicles. "You're scaring me," his wife said quietly. "I know," he replied, "but you're safe with me." She reached over, squeezing his hand briefly. He squeezed back. The safe house sat outside the city limits, a modest property disguised as an ordinary rental home. Years earlier, he had prepared it as insurance against situations he hoped would never come. He unlocked the door, checking each room carefully before allowing his family inside. "Stay here," he said gently. "Don't open the door for anyone unless I say." "What's happening?" she asked again. He hesitated. "There's a threat connected to work," he said. "I'm handling it." Her gaze lingered on him. "You're different." Max didn't deny it. "I'll be back soon," he said softly. Outside, he exhaled slowly. Then he pulled out one of the burner phones. Another number. "Reyes," he said when the line connected. "That was fast," Daniel Reyes replied. "I take it things escalated?" "You were right," Max said. Silence. "What happened?" "Ross attacked my father. Tortured him for access codes." A sharp breath came through the line. "Jesus." "And he hired a team targeting my family." Reyes cursed under his breath. "What do you need?" "Information," Max said. "Everything you have. I'll send what I can." "But Max, if this is as big as it sounds, it is." Max ended the call. He returned to his car and opened a laptop, connecting through layered encryption channels. Multiple screens filled with data streams as he began pulling internal records, financial transactions, communications, metadata. The process felt familiar. Natural, like slipping into a well-worn suit. The ghost was waking. He mapped Ross's recent movements, meetings, travel patterns, encrypted communications routed through offshore servers. One file caught his attention: a shell corporation linked to known intelligence brokers. Another: payments routed through multiple countries, amounts large enough to suggest more than corporate espionage. Max leaned back, studying the pattern. This wasn't sudden betrayal. It was planned, carefully, methodically. He accessed deeper records. Dates stretched back months, then nearly a year. Ross had been building something in the shadows while smiling across conference tables. Max felt the cold clarity settle deeper inside him. Another encrypted message arrived from Reyes. Attachments. Photos of Ross meeting with unfamiliar men. Faces Max recognized from old briefings. Brokers who facilitated exchanges between governments that never admitted working together. Foreign buyers. Billions at stake. Max stared at the screen for a long moment. The last piece fell into place. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, the transformation was complete. The ghost, the identity he tried to bury, had resurfaced. He began gathering intelligence on Ross and learned the betrayal had been planned for over a year, involving foreign buyers willing to pay billions. Chapter 5: The Kill Team. Max watched his own house from across the street. The engine of his car was off, windows cracked slightly to prevent fogging. Darkness covered the quiet suburban neighborhood, broken only by occasional porch lights and the distant hum of traffic. To anyone else, it looked peaceful. To Max, it looked wrong. He lowered the binoculars slowly, exhaling through his nose. 2 vehicles, he murmured to himself. Same rotation pattern. A dark sedan had passed the house 3 times in the last hour. Another SUV parked 2 houses down, engine running intermittently, enough to maintain readiness without drawing too much attention. Professionals, not random criminals. He reached into the passenger seat, opening a compact case filled with equipment, miniature cameras, signal intercept tools, and a small drone. Within minutes, he launched the drone into the night sky, guiding it silently above the street. The feed streamed to his tablet, revealing thermal signatures inside the parked SUV. Two figures, both armed, one scanning through binoculars. Max nodded slowly. "They're early," he said quietly. His father's warning echoed in his mind. A wet work team. He glanced at the empty house. The family was safe at the safe house. That thought steadied him. Now, this place could become something else entirely. A battlefield. He entered through the back door, moving quickly but methodically. Lights remained off, curtains drawn, every movement deliberate. The house still smelled faintly of home, cooking spices, laundry detergent life. Max forced himself not to linger on that. He went straight to work. Motion sensors activated in strategic hallways. A remote-controlled lighting system programmed to flicker on command. Hidden cameras repositioned to cover blind spots. He unlocked a storage compartment in the garage and removed items from a sealed container, tools he had hoped never to use again. Non-lethal traps, restraints, flash devices, and a handgun. He checked it mechanically, muscle memory guiding him. As he worked, his breathing slowed. The ghost understood environments. Every door became a funnel, every hallway a decision point, every shadow a weapon. He turned the living room into controlled chaos. Furniture shifted slightly to create obstacles. Lines of sight adjusted, entry points narrowed. Then he sat on the couch and waited. Midnight passed, then 1, by 2. The neighborhood had fallen completely silent. At 2:17 a.m., the first movement appeared on the drone feed. 3 figures approaching from different directions. Black clothing, masks, suppressed weapons. Max's lips pressed into a thin line. Professional formation. They split efficiently, one toward the rear entrance, one covering the perimeter, one approaching the front. Max activated the first phase. Lights inside the house flicked on suddenly. The illusion of occupancy. Outside, one of the operatives paused, signaling silently to the others. Max could almost hear their thoughts. Target confirmed. The back door handle turned slowly. Unlocked. He had left it that way intentionally. The operative entered cautiously, weapon raised. Max waited until he reached the hallway. Then the light snapped off. A flash device detonated with a sharp crack. The man staggered, disoriented. Max moved fast. 2 precise strikes. One to the wrist, disarming him. Another to the throat, cutting off airflow without permanent damage. The operative collapsed silently. Max dragged him behind a wall and secured him with restraints. Outside, the other 2 reacted instantly. Professional. They shifted positions, attempting to triangulate. Max triggered another sensor. Footsteps simulated upstairs. One operative rushed toward the staircase. Max descended behind him like a shadow. A chokehold. Controlled pressure. The man fought briefly before losing consciousness. The third operative attempted retreat. Max anticipated it. He stepped through the garage door just as the man turned the corner. They froze for a fraction of a second, eyes locking. Recognition flashed in the operative's gaze. This wasn't supposed to happen. Max fired once, not to kill, but to disable, hitting the man's leg. He fell with a suppressed cry. Moments later, all 3 were secured inside the living room. Max turned on a single lamp. The warm light contrasted sharply with the tension in the room. He removed one operative's mask. Mid-30s. Military haircut. No obvious insignia. Professional mercenary. Max crouched in front of him. "Who hired you?" Silence. The man glared back. Max sighed faintly. "We can do this the easy way." No response. Max reached into his bag, producing a small device, a pain compliance tool designed to create intense discomfort without lasting injury. The operative's composure cracked slightly. "Let's try again," Max said calmly. "Who sent you?" The man hesitated. "Contract," he muttered finally. "From who?" Silence. Max activated the device briefly. The man gritted his teeth, breathing hard. "Marcus," he spat finally. "Marcus Kane." The name hit like a distant echo from another life. Max's eyes hardened. What's the objective? Extract codes, eliminate resistance. Ross Bradshaw? Max asked quietly. A brief hesitation, then a nod. Max sat back slowly. Marcus Kane, rogue ex-CIA, a ghost who sold loyalty to the highest bidder. The pieces aligned with terrifying clarity. Max stood, looking down at the restrained man. Through interrogation, he confirmed Ross's alliance with rogue ex-CIA operative Marcus Kane, a man known for selling secrets without loyalty to any country. Chapter 6: The Web Behind Ross. The first light of morning filtered through the blinds of the safe house, casting pale stripes across the table where laptops, tablets, and printed documents formed a chaotic battlefield of information. Max hadn't slept. 3 coffee cups sat empty near his elbow, forgotten long ago as data replaced exhaustion. Daniel Reyes leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes scanning a screen filled with financial transfers. Jesus, Reyes muttered. This isn't just corporate betrayal. Max said nothing. Across from them, another figure worked quietly. Elena Volkov, a cybersecurity analyst Max trusted from a previous life. She typed rapidly, her fingers barely pausing as layers of encryption fell apart under her expertise. I've mapped 3 separate funding channels, she said, all routed through shell companies. Classic intelligence laundering. Max leaned forward slightly. Origins. Elena exhaled slowly. Multiple Eastern European syndicates. Private security fronts in the Middle East. One node linked to a Chinese state proxy. Reyes let out a low whistle. That's ambitious. Max's gaze remained fixed on the screen. This wasn't just about Ross wanting control of DataVal. This was something larger. Show me Ross's communications timeline again, Max said. Elena pulled up a new display. Messages routed through encrypted servers, burner accounts, anonymized networks. Patterns emerged. Regular contact with brokers known to operate in the gray market between governments and criminal organizations. Deals negotiated slowly, carefully. Ross hadn't rushed. He had built this piece by piece. Reyes shook his head. You sure this is the same guy you partnered with? Max didn't answer immediately. Images flashed in his mind. Late-night strategy meetings, shared victories, trust built through years of work. You don't become this overnight, Max said quietly. Elena glanced at him. Meaning, he was planning long before I noticed. Reyes walked toward the table, dropping a printed photo. Ross sat across from 2 unidentified men in a dim restaurant. One of them Max recognized immediately, a broker who specialized in high-value intelligence exchanges. He's not just selling information, Reyes said. He's positioning himself as a player. Max studied the photo. Ross's expression looked different, sharper, more intense than the confident public persona he usually displayed. Pull audio if we have it, Max said. Elena shook her head. No direct recordings, but I intercepted fragments of text exchanges. She brought them onto the screen. Short phrases. Access confirmed. Keys are primary objective. Buyers ready upon delivery. Max's jaw tightened. What keys? Reyes asked. Max already knew the answer. The central server facility, he said. Elena's typing slowed. That's not possible, she said. Those encryption keys control multiple military infrastructures. Satellite communication, drone coordination, secure battlefield networks. If someone extracted them, Reyes finished quietly, they could cripple defenses or sell vulnerabilities. Max nodded once. Silence settled over the room as the magnitude sank in. This isn't about money alone, Max said finally. Reyes glanced at him. You think ideology? Power, Max said simply. He remembered conversations with Ross, moments when ambition had sharpened into something darker. You ever notice, Ross had said once, laughing lightly, how the world is controlled by people bold enough to take it? At the time, Max had dismissed it as bravado. Now it sounded like confession. Elena zoomed into another dataset. Here, she said, message logs referencing a scheduled operation. Max stepped closer. Date and time parameters aligned with upcoming system maintenance windows, moments when security layers adjusted automatically. Ross had chosen the perfect opportunity. He's planning to access the facility directly, Max said. Reyes frowned. Wouldn't that trigger alarms? Not if he has executive clearance, Max replied. And he almost does, Elena added quietly. Except for your partition. Max exhaled slowly. That was why Ross needed the codes. Not just for access, for full control. Another notification appeared on Elena's screen. New communication intercepted, she said quickly. The message displayed in encrypted fragments, partially reconstructed. Delivery confirmed upon extraction. Multiple buyers prepared. Transfer window limited. Reyes cursed under his breath. This is global-level damage waiting to happen. Max leaned back, mind racing through possibilities. Ross believed he could seize control of systems that nations depended on. Not for revenge, not just for wealth, but because he believed he deserved it. That's what this is, Max said quietly. He thinks power belongs to whoever is willing to take it. Reyes studied him. And you? Max didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the wall where maps of the city were pinned, routes, security layouts, known locations tied to Ross's movements. Time was shrinking. Every moment increased the risk. He's accelerating, Max said. Elena nodded. If he accesses the central facility, there's no guarantee we can stop the fallout. Max closed his eyes briefly, letting instinct guide him. Then he opened them again. Focused, decisive. Max and his trusted allies uncovered the deeper conspiracy. Ross wasn't just motivated by money. He believed power belonged to those willing to seize it. Multiple foreign intelligence buyers were involved, escalating the stakes beyond personal revenge. Max learned that Ross intended to access the central server facility to extract encryption keys capable of compromising military infrastructure worldwide. Time became critical. Chapter 7, The Bait. Max stood across the street from Datavel Technologies and watched the building like a stranger. Morning light reflected off the glass facade, turning it into a mirror that hid everything behind it. Employees arrived with coffee cups and laptops, unaware that the place they walked into every day was about to become something else entirely. A battlefield. Daniel Reyes leaned against the passenger door of the car beside him. You sure about this? He asked quietly. We could expose Ross right now. Send everything to federal contacts, shut him down before he moves. Max didn't answer immediately. He watched Ross's black sedan parked near the executive entrance. He's not acting alone, Max said finally. If we expose him too early, the buyers disappear. Kane disappears. We lose the network. Reyes frowned. And instead you want to invite them inside? I want them where I control the variables. Reyes shook his head slowly. You really are back. Max didn't respond. Because it was true. The ghost didn't chase enemies. The ghost built traps. Inside the building, everything looked normal. Reception lights glowed warmly. Screens displayed company news and stock performance. Engineers walked through hallways discussing code as if nothing had changed. Max greeted employees calmly, projecting the same composed CEO they knew. Morning, sir, a young analyst said. Morning, Max replied with a faint smile. But beneath the calm surface, he was mapping angles, entrances, blind spots, turning familiar spaces into strategic assets. He entered the secure operations room. Elena stood, waiting near a wall of monitors. You're late, she said. Traffic, he replied dryly. She handed him a tablet displaying building schematics. I've integrated the surveillance upgrades you requested, she said. Hidden cameras and ventilation access points. Motion sensors recalibrated to silent mode. Max nodded. Emergency lockdown protocols? He asked. Rewritten, she replied. Only you and I have master override. Reyes entered moments later carrying equipment cases. I still think this is insane, he said, setting them down. Noted, Max replied. He opened the cases, revealing non-lethal tactical gear, remote triggers, and communication headsets. This place was designed to keep data safe, Reyes said, not to run covert operations. Max glanced at him. Today it does both. They moved through the building together, installing devices quietly. Hallways gained hidden sensors. Doors were rewired to lock remotely. Lighting controls were adjusted to create sudden darkness if needed. Max paused near the central server vault, the heart of DataVal. Thick reinforced doors stood closed, biometric locks glowing softly. "This is where he'll come," Max said. Elena nodded. "If he believes he has a real chance." Max turned toward a terminal. "That's exactly what I'm going to give him." He opened a secure communication channel and drafted a message. Short, professional, plausible. "We need to talk about access structure. I've reconsidered." He sent it to Ross. Reyes raised an eyebrow. "That's it." Max nodded. "Ross expects resistance. If I suddenly agree, he'll think he won." The reply came within minutes. "Good. I'll come by this afternoon." Max studied the message. No hesitation. Ross believed the moment had finally arrived. Hours passed as preparations continued. Max adjusted camera angles personally, ensuring no blind spots remained. He walked through the building repeatedly, memorizing routes like a maze he had designed himself. Every door became a checkpoint, every room a tactical position. Employees gradually left for the day, unaware of the transformation occurring around them. By evening, the building was nearly empty. Max stood alone in the main hallway, listening to the faint hum of servers. Reyes approached quietly. Perimeter cameras show Ross's car entering the garage. Max's breathing slowed. "Positions," he said. Lights dimmed slightly, shifting the atmosphere from corporate office to shadow terrain. Elena monitored feeds from the operations room. Reyes moved toward a secondary corridor. Max remained near the server vault. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Ross appeared moments later, dressed impeccably as always, confidence radiating from every movement. "Max," he said warmly, spreading his hands. "I'm glad you called." Max nodded once. "We need to resolve this." Ross glanced around. "Everyone gone already?" "Late meeting," Max said simply. Ross stepped closer, eyes sharp. "You've been distant lately," he said. "I was starting to think you didn't trust me." Max held his gaze. "I've reconsidered." Ross's smile widened. "I knew you would eventually," he said. "You're practical." Max gestured toward the server vault. "Let's talk inside." Ross's eyes flickered with satisfaction. He believed he had won. He walked forward without hesitation. The building became a battlefield engineered for controlled confrontation. Ross walked into the facility confident he held the advantage. Chapter 8: Betrayal Revealed. The lights in the facility hummed softly, casting long white reflections across polished floors and glass partitions. Every surface felt too clean, too quiet, like the calm breath before a storm. Max stood at the center of the main control room, watching through a wall of monitors as Ross moved deeper into the building. Ross walked confidently, hands tucked casually into his coat pockets, eyes scanning just enough to appear cautious, but not enough to betray concern. He believed he was winning. That illusion was part of the plan. Max adjusted an earpiece and leaned slightly closer to one of the screens. "You're earlier than expected," he murmured under his breath. The automated locks behind Ross sealed silently once he passed through each corridor, isolating him piece by piece without drawing attention. A subtle rearrangement of the battlefield. Max turned away from the monitors and stepped into the hallway. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, not the walk of a man chasing an enemy, but of someone who had already calculated every outcome. Ross rounded a corner and stopped. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, neither spoke. "Well," Ross said finally, a faint smile curling at the edge of his mouth. "I was wondering how long you'd keep hiding behind screens." Max remained still, studying him. "I'm not hiding." Ross laughed lightly. "Of course not. You've always preferred the dramatic reveal." Silence settled again, heavier this time. "You came alone," Max said. "Did you expect anything else?" "I expected you to be smarter." Ross's expression sharpened slightly. "Careful. You might hurt my feelings." Max took a step forward, closing the distance just enough to make the tension tangible. "Why Ross?" The question hung between them like a loaded weapon. Ross tilted his head, feigning confusion. "Why what?" "You know exactly what." Ross exhaled slowly, then shrugged. "Honestly, I didn't think you'd figure it out this fast. I underestimated how quickly you'd notice the discrepancies." "You didn't answer me." Ross's smile faded. For the first time, Something genuine flickered in his eyes, irritation, perhaps even relief. Fine, he said. You want honesty? I'll give you honesty. He began pacing slowly, circling as though inspecting the room while speaking. You left, Ross said. You walked away from everything, the intelligence world, the power, the access. You had influence most people would kill for, and you just abandoned it. Max watched him carefully. That wasn't your decision to make. No, Ross snapped, but it affected me. He stopped and faced Max directly. Do you know what it's like, Ross continued, to stand next to someone who is always the legend? The ghost, the genius, the man everyone listens to. And me? I was always the second name, the partner, the assistant. You were never just that. That's easy for you to say, Ross replied coldly. You were the one in the spotlight. Max shook his head slowly. You chose this because of pride? Ross laughed harshly. Don't reduce it to something small. This isn't just pride. It's opportunity. His voice grew sharper, more intense. Wealth, max control. Influence without limits. Marcus Kane understands that the world isn't shaped by ideals. It's shaped by those who are willing to take power. Max's expression darkened. So you sold us out. I evolved, Ross corrected. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. Ross stepped closer, eyes blazing. I stopped living in your shadow. The word struck with more force than any weapon. Max said nothing for a moment. The quiet stretched, heavy with years of history. Mission survived, victory shared, trust built piece by piece, and now shattered beyond repair. You could have asked, Max said finally. You could have spoken to me. Ross scoffed. And what? You give me a speech about morals? About stepping away from darkness? No, Max. I saw the future, and I chose to be on the winning side. And you believe Kane will let you share that power? Ross hesitated, only for a fraction of a second, but Max noticed. That's not your concern. It is, Max replied softly, because you're still walking into a trap you don't understand. Ross's smile returned, sharper now. You think you're in control? I already know about the traps. The surveillance. The lockdown protocols. You're predictable. Max's gaze didn't waver. Am I? Ross reached into his coat, slowly, deliberately. Max didn't move. Ross pulled out a small device, sleek, metallic, and held it up. Fail-safe override, he said. I spent months preparing. You're not the only one who knows this building. Max glanced briefly at the device, then back at Ross. You're right. You're not the only one. Ross pressed a button. Nothing happened. He frowned slightly, pressing it again. Still nothing. The lights flickered briefly, then stabilized. Ross's expression hardened. You changed the system. I rebuilt it, Max corrected. Ross's jaw tightened. You planned this. Yes. The admission landed with finality. Ross took a step back, reassessing, eyes darting subtly toward exits that no longer opened. You're stalling, Ross said quietly. I'm talking to an old friend, Max replied. We're past that. I know. Ross moved suddenly, lunging forward, fast, aggressive, trained. But Max had anticipated the motion before it began. He pivoted smoothly, redirecting Ross's momentum. Their bodies collided briefly, a blur of controlled violence. Ross threw a punch. Max deflected it, countering with a precise strike that forced Ross off balance. They moved around each other like shadows, every motion calculated, every reaction born from years of shared training. You always were faster, Ross muttered through clenched teeth. And you always relied too much on assumptions. Ross attempted another strike, but Max stepped inside his guard, twisting sharply. In one fluid motion, he disarmed Ross and drove him to the floor. The fight ended almost as quickly as it began. Ross struggled, but Max pinned him with controlled pressure, firm, efficient final. Breathing heavily, Ross laughed weakly. So this is it? You win. This isn't about winning. Max secured restraints around Ross's wrists. It's about ending this. Ross looked up, searching Max's face. You won't kill me. No, Max said quietly. Realization dawned slowly in Ross's eyes. You're using me, Ross whispered. Max met his gaze without apology. Yes. Ross's laugh returned, hollow this time. Still the strategist. Still the ghost. Max stood and pulled Ross to his feet, guiding him toward the center of the room. Monitors around them shifted, displaying new feeds, external cameras, approaching vehicles, encrypted signals lighting up like stars across a dark sky. "They're coming," Max said calmly. Ross's smile faded. "Marcus." "Yes." Ross swallowed, tension creeping into his posture. "You're turning me into bait." Max didn't deny it. The room fell silent except for the hum of machinery and distant echoes of security systems activating. Outside, unseen forces began moving into position. Inside, Max watched the screens, calculating every angle, every timing window, every potential variable. The battlefield was set. The Ghost began shaping the battlefield exactly as he wants. Chapter 9, The Ghost Trap. The building's lights dimmed into a low hum, casting long shadows along the polished floors. Max stood in the operations room, monitors flickering with real-time feeds from hidden cameras and motion sensors. The smell of metal and electronics filled the air. He could hear the faint hum of air circulation through the vents, the subtle vibrations of approaching footsteps, far too coordinated to be random. "Reyes," Max said quietly, eyes on the screen. "They're inside." Reyes, crouched behind a desk, peered at the display. 10 operatives, he reported. Armed, coordinated. Tactical insertion. Standard Kane signature. Elena, stationed at another console, tapped rapidly on her keyboard. "They're moving through the south corridor. Spacing of 5 meters, suppressors. Thermal sensors confirm full body armor." Max leaned forward. "Good. Let them think they have the advantage." The Ghost was patient. Precision mattered more than speed. Outside the building, Marcus Kane and his team advanced like phantoms, slipping past the city's edge into the garage. Kane, tall, lean, and cold-eyed, scanned the interior with practiced caution. His men fanned out silently, checking every corner, every blind spot. Each step was calculated, professional, ruthless. "This is supposed to be a quick extraction," Kane muttered, voice low. "Where's our target?" One of his operatives, crouched near a server access point, checked the corridor ahead. "Still nothing, boss." "Too quiet." Kane's jaw tightened. Quiet isn't always good. He advanced, confident, but unaware that the building itself had been transformed into a tactical labyrinth. Hallways redirected movement with subtle barricades. Hidden motion sensors triggered low hums of alarms in Kane's mind, but not enough to betray their source. Inside, Max's calm voice came through encrypted earpieces. "You've walked into my house. I hope you enjoy it." A flicker of confusion passed among the operatives. "Who's speaking?" Kane barked. No answer. Only the faint click of hidden doors sliding into place and lights dimming strategically, forcing shadows to stretch unnaturally across hallways. The first operative stepped into a hallway rigged with a strobe-like flash device. A sharp pop went off, momentarily disorienting him. Max had timed it perfectly, a microsecond delay, enough to break concentration without permanent damage. "Eyes on the target." Kane hissed, signaling 2 operatives forward. Max moved through the monitors, watching as panic began to ripple subtly through Kane's team. One man misjudged a hallway bend and triggered a silent pressure plate. A soft net ensnared his legs, lifting him off the ground before he could react. "Keep moving," Kane growled, voice edged with frustration. "No mistakes." Max allowed a smirk, hidden behind the calm of observation. "Mistakes are expensive," he murmured. Another operative stepped into a room that had been modified with mirrors and subtle reflective surfaces. Max manipulated lighting to disorient him, creating the illusion of multiple targets in multiple directions. The operative froze, firing a single round blindly, striking a wall inches from his head. "Hallway Delta, 6 o'clock," Kane shouted, but Max had already locked doors ahead of him, forcing the team into a choke point. One by one, the operatives found themselves isolated, funneled into controlled zones where Max could neutralize them with precision, non-lethal force, pain compliance tools, and psychological pressure. Every movement Kane attempted to coordinate was anticipated through the surveillance network Max had built. In the chaos, Kane's comms were sporadic. Alpha, get the lead. Beta, cover the flank. No deviation. He moved toward the server vault, aware that Max must be somewhere close, but invisible. Kane's instinct told him the environment was manipulated. Every shadow, every sudden flicker of light, every misstep felt orchestrated. Max appeared silently, emerging from a shadowed corridor. His eyes locked on Kane. "You were supposed to be an extraction expert," Max said calmly, voice cold and deliberate. Kane's lips curled into a faint grin. "And you were supposed to be retired." "Retired?" Max echoed. "You know me better than that. I never retired. I just waited." The two men circled each other, calculating, like predators testing the terrain. Kane's operatives regrouped, forming defensive positions, but Max had already accounted for every angle, every likely line of attack. A sudden movement. One operative lunged toward Max from behind, and he twisted, using the man's momentum to redirect him into a padded wall. Pain compliance applied swiftly, and the operative crumpled silently. Kane's focus wavered for a heartbeat, enough for Max to disappear again into the shadows. Kane barked orders. "Sweep the room. Don't let him outmaneuver you." Max's voice returned through encrypted channels, but only in Kane's earpiece, psychological manipulation. "You think you have control. You don't even know the floor plan anymore. Every step you take, I've already calculated." Sweat formed along Kane's temple, and his eyes flicked nervously to monitors that weren't there, shadows playing tricks. He realized that the ghost wasn't just controlling the physical battlefield. He was controlling their minds. Meanwhile, Ross, restrained but conscious, was dragged along by Max to a side vantage point with a full view of Kane's team. He watched, a mixture of awe and terror in his eyes, as his own alliances collapsed one by one. "Multiple buyers," Ross muttered through gritted teeth. "You don't understand. They're counting on this. Governments, organizations, billions at stake." Max glanced at him, expression cold. "And you almost ruined it all for greed." Ross's shoulders slumped slightly. "It's bigger than you think. The stakes, it's catastrophic if you fail." Max's lips tightened. He had no intention of failing. Not tonight. Not ever. Outside, Kane's operatives had dwindled to half their original number. Injuries, traps, and precise neutralizations had forced them into disarray. Panic was creeping in. Kane himself was visibly frustrated, anger mingling with fear. Max remained in control, observing from the shadows, watching as Kane tried desperately to regain initiative. But every step was anticipated, every move channeled into the sections Max had prepared. And then Ross spoke again. "You need to understand, multiple global powers, they're competing for this, the stolen data. If you fail, it's catastrophic." Max nodded silently, absorbing the weight of the revelation. The battlefield was set, the trap sprung, and the enemies he'd once only imagined were finally within his reach. The ghost moved deliberately, shaping every element, the psychological warfare, the surveillance, the tactical force, exactly as he had planned. Marcus Kane and his armed operatives entered the facility expecting a simple extraction mission. Instead, they found themselves inside a carefully engineered tactical maze. Max used psychological warfare, surveillance, and precise force to dismantle the team piece by piece. During the confrontation, Ross reveals that multiple global powers are competing for the stolen data, emphasizing how catastrophic failure would be. Chapter 10. What Remains of Ghosts. The central server vault loomed ahead, a monolith of steel and encryption, humming softly beneath overhead fluorescent lights. Max moved silently through the maze of corridors, eyes scanning monitors that flickered with movement from the remaining Kane operatives. The building smelled faintly of burned circuitry, smoke from a small controlled electrical trap lingering in the air. Ross, restrained but defiant, followed at Max's side. His eyes darted nervously toward every shadow, every corner. "They said you'd come," Ross muttered, voice sharp and bitter. "You think you're the only one who can stop Kane? You are always the hero, aren't you?" Max's gaze remained fixed ahead. "I'm not a hero. I'm a threat to people who would sell the world for money." Ross snorted. "And that's noble. It's necessary, Max replied. Ahead, Kane emerged from a darkened corridor, flanked by two remaining operatives. His expression was a mixture of fury and respect. He had known Max's reputation, but now he saw it in motion. Max Mahoney, Kane said, voice smooth but dangerous. The ghost. I've been waiting for this reunion. You should have stayed retired, Max said calmly. It would have been easier for everyone. Kane smiled faintly. Easier? You don't do easy. That's why we're here. Max shifted slightly, positioning himself between Kane and the server vault. Not today. Kane's eyes flicked toward Ross, still restrained. The codes. You'll give them up, won't you? Ross laughed weakly. He won't. He never will. That's why this is impossible for you. Kane's grin hardened. Nothing's impossible. You just underestimate me. Max's mind raced, evaluating angles, timing, escape routes, and attack patterns. The ghost was back in full force, every skill honed to perfection, every movement calculated. Suddenly, Kane's operative moved forward aggressively, aiming to flank Max. Max reacted instantly, sliding low, striking the operative's knee with a calculated blow that brought him down silently. Kane's second operative lunged from the opposite side. Max anticipated it, twisting and redirecting the momentum to slam him against a wall. Kane cursed under his breath, eyes narrowing. You're faster than I expected. Decades of practice, Max replied, voice calm as he disarmed the last operative, restraining him efficiently. Ross watched in tense silence, his own betrayal weighing heavy in the room. You know, he said, voice trembling slightly, this isn't just about us. The buyers, global powers, they're counting on this. If Kane succeeds, I know, Max said quietly, fixing his gaze on Kane, which is why he won't. Kane stepped forward, switching tactics. No longer trying to fight physically, he attempted psychological manipulation. You've always been the ghost, he said, and yet you're just a man. You have family. You have emotions. Let them go. Walk away. Max's jaw tightened. I walked away once, and the world nearly paid the price for it. Not again. Kane's eyes flickered. You're stubborn. Maybe that's why I respect you and fear you. Max shifted the remaining operatives into controlled positions, ensuring none could reach Ross or the server vault. Every hallway, every door, every sensor had already been engineered to limit their movement. The maze of the facility became a weapon, a mental and physical gauntlet. He glanced at Ross. You understand why this is necessary? Ross swallowed, eyes flicking nervously between Max and Kane. You're right, it's bigger than me, bigger than us, but I never imagined this level of force. Max nodded. Force isn't enough without precision. We end this cleanly or not at all. Kane advanced cautiously, testing the limits. Max used shadowed angles, soft lighting, and sudden, controlled bursts of sound to destabilize Kane's team. Kane's confidence remained, but his control over the situation began to slip. You always had a flair for theatrics, Kane said, voice rising slightly. But this isn't a game. Max's eyes never left Kane's. I don't play games. I neutralize threats. With a single, precise motion, Max incapacitated Kane's operative with a wrist lock and a quick strike. Kane hesitated. The ghost moved too fast, always one step ahead. Another operative tried to flank Kane. Max intercepted them with near-invisible efficiency, leaving Kane exposed. Ross, observing the battlefield, whispered under his breath, "This is what happens when ghosts return. Nothing survives unprepared." Kane's frustration boiled over. Why, Mahoney? Why not step back? Leave this alone? Because, Max said, voice steady, some ghosts never truly leave. A final confrontation drew near. Kane lunged forward, attempting a desperate grab for the nearest terminal. Max anticipated the move, sidestepping with perfect timing, pushing Kane into a hallway that had already been rigged with a subtle containment mechanism. The operative hit the soft restraints and was momentarily immobilized. Kane spun, eyes blazing, but the ghost was already behind him, positioning him between walls and monitors that now functioned as strategic choke points. Every possible angle of attack had been considered. Kane realized too late that every movement he made was being controlled, monitored, and countered. "You've mastered anticipation," Kane said through gritted teeth. "I have to admit, it's impressive." Max's expression remained neutral. "It's necessary." Ross, still restrained but now fully aware of the totality of Max's control, whispered, "You were always the ghost, even when you tried to hide it, and now the world remembers why." Max didn't respond immediately. Instead, he surveyed the room, ensuring every operative was neutralized, every escape route blocked. The building had become a living extension of his strategy, every hallway, vent, and doorway serving his purpose. Finally, Kane stopped moving, recognizing the futility. His breathing was sharp, calculated. He evaluated Max and the room and realized the confrontation was over. "You've won," Kane admitted quietly, voice heavy with reluctant respect. "This isn't about me anymore. You're the ghost. Always the ghost." Max's gaze softened, though only slightly. "I'm done with ghosts for today, but I will act whenever the world needs someone willing to step into darkness." Ross, watching the resolution unfold, let out a low, resigned breath. "It's over." Max didn't respond. His eyes lingered on the monitors, on the remnants of Kane's team, on the room that had been a battlefield and now felt like a tomb of betrayal and calculated justice. He turned toward Ross. "You need to understand, this is what happens when trust is broken and greed takes control." Ross nodded, humbled and broken. "I understand now, far too late." Max moved through the facility, ensuring no loose ends remained. The operatives were neutralized without unnecessary fatalities, the data secure, and the path clear for his family's safety. The ghost had acted decisively, balancing vengeance, duty, and protection. In the quiet aftermath, as emergency lights flickered and the building returned to near silence, Max exhaled deeply. The adrenaline faded slowly, leaving only the calculated calm that had always defined him. He looked out through the glass walls toward the city, night settling over skyscrapers and highways. The chaos was contained, the immediate threat eliminated. But he knew the truth. Peace was temporary. The ghost had returned to the shadows, but he could not vanish completely. The skills, instincts, and ruthlessness remained, waiting for the next moment when the world demanded it. Some ghosts never truly disappear. The room was empty now, aside from Max, Ross, and the remnants of Kane's team. Max secured the last restraints, checked surveillance systems, and ensured the data integrity of the servers. The city outside pulsed with life, unaware of how close it had come to disaster. He paused for a moment, placing a hand on the cool steel of the central server vault. Memories of his father, of betrayal, of loss, and of duty flickered across his mind. The ghost had acted, but the man beneath the mask would always carry the weight of what had happened. Some ghosts never truly disappear.